Dialectics. Let's talk no-knocks. Yeah, so if you are watching this on playback and you really like it, and I don't know how you couldn't, right? My content's just absolutely amazing. But if you're watching this on playback, look down below. There's a super thanks option. Would love for you to hit that super thanks. Otherwise, you can head over to my subscribe star at Minnesota Black Robe Regiment Podcast on Subscribe Star. And if you're watching it live, hit the super chat or super sticker. And if you are interested in commenting on this topic, I would love to hear your thoughts and interact with them as we're doing our latest episode of Drive Time Dialectics, because I believe this is an incredibly important topic, which, who talks about things they don't think are important? Well, wait, 98% of the people that you and I work with talk about everything under the sun. Well, wait a minute. A lot of the garbage that gets talked about around us is important to the people who talk about the garbage, right? So, anywho, why am I wanting to talk about no-knock warrants? Because I have a good friend and an ally in the fight for liberty who who happens to be an elected servant here in the state of Minnesota, who had some thoughtful things to say about not ending no-knock warrants in the state of Minnesota, and we disagree, and that's okay, because the individual in question is someone I know I can disagree with on an issue like this, and not worry about our friendship ending, which is hard to find these days, quite frankly. It's an incredibly hard thing to find, especially amongst conservatives. Conservatives are incredibly hard-nosed in that the minute you disagree with them, they end you. Like, when I mean end, I don't mean by like violence. I mean they end you in their book of friendship. You're done. If you disagree with a conservative in the state of Minnesota about something that they deem to be the conservative issue, or a cream of the crop style conservative issue, they will not talk to you anymore. They will label you all sorts of things. And this friend I'm talking about is not like that. And he brings measured and logical and reasonable responses. Even when I don't agree with them, they're reasonable. And that's what I appreciate about him and respect about him. And frankly, why I love him as a friend is because of that. Now, that aside, I disagree with him on no-knock warrants. I do believe that no-knock warrants in the United States as a whole, but here, especially in the state of Minnesota, need to be gone. They need to go away. My reason for wanting them to go is different than the reason that the Minnesota Democrats want them gone. Okay? The Minnesota Democrats are, they come up with all sorts of things that no-knock warrants, in particular, victimize minorities of all stripes more than they do others, and I don't see things in the nature of ethnicity or gender ideology or sexual ideology, critical theory, and all of that. That's not how I view things. But what I do agree with them is that no-knock warrants need to go away. Now, for those of you that don't know what a no-knock warrant is, or haven't bothered to look into what no-knock warrants are, or have never been faced with an idea of a no-knock warrant, everyone knows that we have Bill of Rights, natural rights enshrined within the Bill of Rights that protect us from things like unreasonable searches and seizures. I don't know what word I was going to say there. And those things are inherent to us as human beings. So within the Fourth Amendment, we are not subject to warrantless searches, warrantless seizures. And any warrant that is issued has to be issued with, factual evidence to demonstrate that the warrant is necessary and pivotal to the case of the state against the individual. We all should know that. Now, we also know that people are often arrested on made up things on the spot. There are thousands of videos available on different video services of people demonstrating how they, like, frankly, law enforcers will fabricate reasons to arrest you, to detain you, and then arrest you. And I've come close myself in the last couple of years on bogus stuff, just absolutely bogus things. And so what a no-knock warrant does is it says that the person we need to arrest is incredibly dangerous, has a high likelihood of violence, has access to means to do great violence, and that people could be taken hostage or harmed or anything like that. So because of this, we, the state agents, the actors, the enforcers on behalf of the person, and we're telling you, we swear to you an oath that what we're saying to you is true, that this person poses an undue risk to people around them, and that serving a regular warrant is going to be incredibly dangerous for people around them, but also especially for law enforcement. And that's one of the arguments that the Democrats here in Minnesota are making to end it, is that no-knock warrants put the public, the suspect. I do not believe that no-knock warrants put police in an undue amount of danger. That's absolutely patently untrue. The number of law enforcement officers in the United States that are hurt during the execution of no-knock warrants is virtually nil. So almost untraceable when it comes to the number of people that are wounded or killed during the execution of no-knock warrants. And so, and I also want people to understand that here you have the left arguing to end no-knock warrants to protect police. That should make any conservative, any paleo-conservative, any Mises libertarian, paleo-libertarian question themselves. And there again, I'm going to align myself with the Democrats on this issue and say I do want it gone, just not for the same reasons. But if their argument is that it puts law enforcement in an undue amount of danger, we have to ask ourselves, since when have the leftists really cared about cops? I mean, they cared on a particular date in January a couple of years ago. They really hyped up how, DT, and you guys should be able to figure out what DT stands for. And then I'm not talking about a former president, but they cared then. But by and large, the left is starting to shift and becoming far more enamored of the police state, which means they've become far more enamored of state enforcement agents because they need the state enforcement agents to execute all of the plans that they have, and while also executing a social justice, political justice agenda that they have. So my reason for agreeing with them is completely different than their reasons. I do not agree with their reasoning, but I do agree that it needs to end. And if we can end it, I'll take whatever reason we can to end it. Right? It's like my friends that went out back in February who marched libertarians and moderates and slightly left of center and slightly right of center and far left communists and Marxists and socialists all marching together to end the war and the Americans' involvement in the war in Ukraine. I can align myself with somebody who I have strong philosophical differences with on most issues when we agree on an important issue. And to me, this is an issue that is incredibly important. I am a constitutional originalist. I don't care what the courts have ruled. No-knock warrants are a violation of the natural rights of man. End of discussion. Therefore, I won't support it. Because I do believe that they are, by and large, more dangerous to the suspect or the subject of the warrant and to the bystanders. And we see this play out time and again in the United States. And sometimes we see it played out with non-no-knock warrants, just regular warrants. Duncan Lemp. This month marks the 3-year anniversary of Duncan Lemp's assassination and murder in his home, in his own dwelling. He didn't have so much as a speeding. He had a speeding ticket conviction, or some sort of traffic violation conviction. So just a real petty thing. That was it. But law enforcement claims that he was an unallowed or unauthorized person. In other words, when it comes to owning firearms. And so somebody fed them some information, and they showed up at his house at like 1 o'clock in the morning and shot through the walls and the windows of his bedroom into his bedroom, striking him and killing him. And they refused to release the body cam footage of this. Just recently, they went to the wrong place, and they came bursting to the door. He rolled over, and they gunned him down because they said he was reaching for a firearm. And if I remember correctly, he was. But how would you respond if somebody came barreling through the front door of your house unannounced, and you had no idea who they were, and you had a firearm? Would you not defend yourself and the people in your home? Would you not? This is why I oppose no-knock warrants. And I did say, if ending no-knock warrants saves one innocent bystander's life, one innocent person's life, it's worth putting law enforcement at that extra risk, saving one life. And boy, the pushback that I've been getting from people: you sound like a leftist. You sound like the same people who backed the lockdowns for COVID-19. They're not analogous, people. They're not analogous. And another person say, well, then we should ban cars, and we should lower the speed limit, and we should do this, and we should do that. Here's where their argument fails. This is why their argument fails. The state already has too much power. The state absolutely 100% has too much freaking power. Taking one small tool away from the state that can victimize innocent people, or even victimize a suspect, taking that one small tool away is one step towards taking back the power from the state that they should not have. Period. End of discussion. Now, the argument was made, and there again, respect for this friend of mine, that we have to, and I'm going to sum it up, I'm going to paraphrase that. Basically, we have to operate off of an objective standard that police are operating in good faith and do not want to see harm to themselves or harm to others, and that at the end of the day, law enforcement just wants to go home safe. And so we have to give the benefit of the doubt to law enforcement that when they show up to that judge to get that no-knock warrant, that they are offering true, factually accurate statements about the individual to justify the no-knock warrant. Now, my response to that is law enforcement doesn't get any more of the benefit of the doubt than the average citizen, than the average person on the street. I do not trust law enforcement any more than I trust my fellow man. Okay, let me phrase that, because I don't want people to think that I think cops aren't men or human beings. But I know human nature. Humankind is at its root. Whether you're an atheist or an agnostic, whether you're pantheistic, Christian, whatever flavor of Christian, I'm going to tell you that we all know that man is corrupt. Atheists know that human beings are corrupt. Agnostics know that human beings are corrupt. Hindus know that human beings are corrupt. Christians, a sound, doctrinally solid Christian, knows that man is born evil, not neutral. That man is born evil. Period. That doesn't mean that cops aren't, because now they're cops, because now they're enforcers for the state. They're state enforcement agents. Therefore, now they get the benefit of the doubt. No, they are not above reproach when it comes to their ability to fabricate, lie, or get things wrong. They have biases. Most of them will work off of subjective opinions when it comes to what constitutes an actual danger. And they're well trained in writing reports. And so writing a statement to a judge, they don't have to lie. But by the way, there is a preponderance of evidence out there now that police fabricate in their reports all the time. They know how to write a report to make themselves look like the good guy or look like a victim of the bad guy. I trust me on this. I have seen it. I've seen it in my time within the detention end of the law enforcement community. In my almost 13 years, I saw coaching on, well, you might want to reword this. That's not the best way to word that. They're never telling anybody to lie. They're never telling anybody to fabricate. What they say is, you may want to reword this line. And I would always say, no, I worded this the way I worded this because this is what I observed and this is what I saw, and you cannot order me to change that. And I did say that to several supervisors over the years. So if that's happening inside of a detention center, you know that's happening on the streets. So this idea that somehow law enforcement will always in good faith offer justification to go in front of the judge and in an ex parte hearing where the subject is not allowed the opportunity to hear what the case against them is. You can't trust that they're just automatically going to tell you the truth, that they're automatically going to be honest and forthright when it comes to what they put in that affidavit for a warrant. I mean, we know for a fact that cops will, on video, planting evidence on their own body cams. They've been caught. If you don't believe me, let me know, and I will demonstrate that for you. Demonstrate it for you. So if they'll do that on a body cam, what makes you think you can trust them to tell the truth in an affidavit in front of a judge, where the judge has no means other than to take the officer at his word? But so as you look at that, as you think about this, as I said, it is the state that has a burden to sacrifice its power to the people. And as hard as this might be for people to understand, the safety of officers is a distant third. It's a tertiary issue when it comes to two primary objectives. The first objective of law enforcement, of the police, of agents of the state acting as enforcement arms of the state, should be to honor their oath. And to do that, that means that they should first and foremost be more concerned with protecting the liberties of all people, to include suspects of heinous crimes. Potentially violent people still have a natural right to be protected from the overreach of the state. Period. Especially since the state possesses to itself, by its own assertions, a monopoly on violence. What would get you and I in trouble and sentenced to very long sentences in prison, the state can do with no repercussions, because the state has granted to itself a monopoly on force or a monopoly on violence. And no-knock warrants extend that monopoly beyond due jurisdiction. There is no presumption of innocence with a no-knock warrant. A no-knock warrant is a declaration by law enforcement to a judge that we know this person is guilty and we know that they are going to do this. Therefore, we need to be protected and take them by surprise. Now, what are my core reasons? One, I don't care what a judge says, I do not believe no-knock warrants meet constitutionality. And remember, just because a court or a judge somewhere says, no, this is constitutional, doesn't mean that it is. And just because a judge orders something, finds something to be unconstitutional, doesn't mean that it is. For years, the Supreme Court of the United States said that abortion was a constitutionally enshrined natural right of women. Is it? Is it, though? Now, I'm not talking about whether or not there should be laws throwing women in prison for getting an abortion or seeking an abortion. That's up to each and every state, and I think it should really come down to very local jurisdictions. Slavery, for the longest time, was protected by the courts in the United States. Horrible means of execution, horrible means of imprisonment were protected by the courts in the United States. Does that make it right because the court said it was? But ultimately, one of my core reasons for being against no-knock warrants is that it will be the tool that enforcement agents of the state at all of her levels will use to come and take weapons away. People think I'm paranoid, but I'm not. I am not paranoid. This is a reality that we have to deal with, folks. Now, for the life of me, I'm surprised that the Democrats aren't coming out and demanding that every warrant be a no-knock warrant for people who own guns. But I am going to side with them warrants, because that will at least be one small measure of protection, one gateway, one wall protecting us from people bursting through our doors and taking our firearms from us without any warning if somebody knows that we own firearms and they don't want us to have them. And here's why this should be so important to people who consider themselves constitutional originalists. If you can't wrap your mind around this, if you cannot get with me and understand that not all cops are corrupt, not all cops are bastards, but if you cannot wrap your mind around the reality that the institution of policing is corrupt, at best it's broken, but as an institution, I believe it's corrupt. And we know one thing: corruption doesn't get better when it's left unchecked. It becomes gangrenous, right? Gangrene sets in. Once it sets in, it doesn't get better unless they come in and do a massive amputation. And in this case, it's massive law enforcement reform. And many of you know I'm working on writing up things that I believe if we were to forward this to local elected servants, city and county level, and even at the state level, that would change the nature of law enforcement for the better for law enforcement and for we the people. But the issue is that I do not believe that a corrupt institution, a corrupt career field, will not corrupt the people that are in it, because I've seen it. I've experienced it. I have been victimized by corruption within law enforcement. So I'm not neutral on this. I am not blinded by an allegiance to law enforcement that says they can do no wrong, that it's a minority amount. I believe that a corrupt institution, the institution of policing, will corrupt everyone who is in it if they don't fight against it. And no-knock warrants are as subject to the objective corruption of a corrupt institution. that it will be used against we the people. And what I have said to others who just refuse to relinquish this tight control upon, or a tight grasp upon this back the blue mentality, is that you are backing the very agency of your own dismantling, my friends. You are. And there again, no-knock warrants will be a massive tool in coming for people. And why do I say this? Because constitutional originalists, patriotic people that when you prick them, they bleed red, white, and blue, if you will, have been deemed the enemy by agencies like the FBI, the BATF, the NSA, Department of Homeland Security. We're the bad guys in their eyes. Talking about the Constitution makes you a radical. Talking about 1776 makes you a radical. Owning a firearm and talking about resisting tyranny makes you a radical, dangerous person in the eyes of the state. And it doesn't bring me joy to say this. I'm not gleeful about this. I'm not gloating at how right I am, but I'm right. I am right. And I dare you to prove me wrong. So anything that we can take away from the state to use against us, even if we have to, for a very brief period in time, align ourselves with people that we disagree with on other issues, is a good thing. It is a good thing if we can line up with somebody and say, we may disagree on this particular issue or on all these other issues, but on this particular issue, we can stand together and say enough is enough. Our reasons for supporting it may be vastly different, but I will support you in granting more power to an already too powerful state. End of story. And if the response is, well, I would rather one cop's life be saved than run the risk, then that you've forgotten that police, as their duty, in their oath to the Constitution and the defense of the Republic from enemies, foreign and domestic, is to adhere to and uphold the Constitution, and then worry about the safety and security of the people and then themselves. But what we hear time and time and time again is, for our safety, we're going to make you do this. We made this person do this for our safety. We were afraid for our safety. And that is the issuance of every single no-knock warrant. Every single one. It is unsafe for us to go there and give them any kind of warning, because it could result in danger to us. And I challenge someone. I dare anyone to prove me wrong on what should be most important to law enforcement. Primarily, protection of people's natural rights as enshrined in the Constitution. 2, then the protection of all people, innocent until proven guilty, correct? And then their own safety. We saw what happens when police take their own safety and place it above the safety of the people they should be serving. We saw that in very recently in law enforcement officers in Uvalde, Texas. Children were allowed to be placed in harm's way because officers cowered outside the door of a schoolroom for 77 minutes while children bled to death. If there was ever a need to do something like not knock and just blow through a door or through a window at great risk to yourself, that was the time. And law enforcement chose to place their safety above the lives of teachers and children when a madman was intent on gunning them down. So no, do I believe every officer is that way? No. But I do not give a benefit of the doubt to law enforcement any more than I would give to the average person walking down the street. Because I know the hearts of men. I can't read the hearts of men, but I know the hearts of men are corrupt. And we are tragically interested in our own survival. We must